It's official, Andor has gone against every forecast for its second season. There is a sudden upward tick in viewership and it has shocked Disney. And today we're going to talk about it. I want to talk about what it means for the future of potential spin-offs, the Rogue One re-release, which Tony Gilroy more or less confirmed, and what this means for the future of Star Wars TV shows. They've set a very high bar in terms of quality, but it's not as simple as to say that this is what every Star Wars TV show is going to look like. Not just in terms of Disney's reluctance to spend big budgets, especially after The Acolyte, but also in terms of creative conflicts within Lucasfilm. A few days ago, Joanna Robinson at The Ringer came out and said, "There's a weird internal fight at Lucasfilm between Dave Filoni and Tony Gilroy. This should be taken with a pinch of salt and none of this is necessarily gospel. It's pretty much impossible to validate this or to know for certain how much of this is true. But Dave Filoni is on record saying that he loves Andor and he thinks it's great that Star Wars has such a diversity of different types of TV show. But he was cautious to say that not all Star Wars should be like this." Well, if the new rumor is to be believed, Dave Filoni's only going along with it because Kathleen Kennedy loves Tony Gilroy. But Dave himself apparently doesn't like when fans say Andor is the best Star Wars TV show. Again, just a rumor, but if it's true, they also go on to say that Dave Filoni has prevented other pitches that don't match his vision for what Star Wars TV show should be. So maybe we got lucky with Andor, and it really is a once-in-a-generation TV show. Both seasons have been phenomenal, but there's something of a sad underbelly to its success. I want to talk about what this is for just a moment, but don't worry, there is some very good news to come. This is all leading to a very positive update. Andor is amazing, but imagine if this show and something like Skeleton Crew released a decade ago, or in 2019. Imagine if they were some of the first Disney Plus TV shows. I think Star Wars would be in a very different position than where it is today. These are two very different TV shows with very different audiences. Very different tonally, focus on different aspects of the galaxy far, far away, very different kinds of characters, and yet, they're both Star Wars. They represent how diverse Star Wars TV shows can be, but they both suffer from Star Wars fan burnout. Imagine if after The Mandalorian's first 2 seasons, these 2 shows were the next releases. Maybe I'm too optimistic, but I don't think we'd have as many people talking about how Star Wars is dead. And even though there are many fans who enjoy these shows, compared to the numbers that Disney Plus was hoping for back in 2019 or 2020, they're nowhere near the level of popularity Disney expected. But this is where the video takes a drastic turn, because out of the blue, despite a slow start, Andor Season 2 is beginning to perform very, very well. There have been mixed reports about the viewership, and a lot of it's been misleading, so I want to clear a few things up. Despite what I said about the sad truth of Andor not getting the recognition and the viewership it deserves, for the last couple of weeks word of mouth is really spreading, and there has been a big uptick in viewership for Season 2. According to several charts, including Just Watch and Luminate, Andor Season 2 is pulling some very strong numbers. For the week of May 2nd to May 8th, Luminate have estimated a whopping 714 million minutes watched. That's nearly 50% higher than the week before. So in a time where numbers for Star Wars content aren't doing as well as they once did, and a drought of content is about to befall us, this is actually very good news. I'm really hoping more and more fans give this a chance, and new fans discover it. Because what I like to call the Rogue One universe, the 2 seasons of Andor and the 2016 movie Rogue One, should have been the heart of Disney Star Wars as soon as the saga was done. The Mandoverse is great, but the Rogue One universe has been far more consistent, with far less content. So who knows what could happen if the numbers keep growing. Another spin-off would be amazing. I know Tony Gilroy's stepping away from Star Wars for a bit, but I'd love if he came back to do more. And next year, my dear friends, is the 10th anniversary of Rogue One, and Lucasfilm are teasing a re-release, and they've talked about the possibility of bringing some Andor episodes to the big screen to complement it. Maybe it's too soon to talk about nostalgia in the same way Revenge of the Sith got for its 20th anniversary, but I think a small piece of forgotten fandom history is how popular Rogue One really was. It came off the heels of the release of The Force Awakens, so of course it was going to be a big hit. But I still hear fans talk about it at conventions, people I know, and I'm sure if they follow through on this, the re-release is going to do big numbers. It's also a great way of giving the casual audience a taste of Andor, and a way to cross-promote Disney Plus. And to tell fans, if you like this movie, the prequel to it in 2 different seasons is on our streaming service. Tony Gilroy said this, "It's been discussed. We've mixed episodes 1, 2 and 3 to play in theaters. They do need a little bit of an extra mix, because people are watching on their iPads or their TVs and for the cinema it's different, but we are considering it, and it depends on how the show goes. These episodes do look good on a big screen." So Tony Gilroy is saying, "We've spoken about this, but it's all contingent on the show's performance. The initial reports that stated Andor Season 2 is a flop only looked at data for the first 2 days after release. But now that we're coming up to the final week, the data is very strong. There might be more that comes from this. Tony Gilroy always said he's going to step away from Star Wars for the moment. He might come back one day, but it all depends on how fans react. And I've been seeing reviews from fans who generally hate Disney Star Wars saying, you know what, they've actually nailed this. Whether it was the Gorman Massacre episode, whether it's the build-up to the finale, Andor Season 2 has changed people's minds. That's definitely a start, and it's a very good sign. After the finale, I'm sure we'll have a much clearer picture. But think about the months that follow. I'm sure Disney and Lucasfilm are going to keep a very close eye on things. There's a very strong possibility we're getting a Rogue One re-release, with Andor episodes accompanying it. Now here's the interesting thing I find. Rogue One is what Andor is building up to, but in retrospect, when you watch some episodes of Andor and then you watch Rogue One, they feel so quintessentially different. But this is where some of the genius of Andor lies. Rogue One is much more space fantasy and sci-fi, less so than the original trilogy, but much more than the Disney Plus show. Andor focuses on the complex effects of personal trauma and grounds this universe and this period of the timeline in a very humane way. So if you go back to rewatch Andor, then Rogue One, then A New Hope, I notice a progression. From the underdog, nobodies of the galaxy who start their own rebellions, to the bigger space fantasy and the Skywalkers of the galaxy in the OT. It's almost a trilogy all unto itself. Andor, Rogue One, A New Hope. The story of the Rebel Alliance didn't start big. It began with small and humble insurgencies, and then it grew. And I think that's why some of the critics of this show say it doesn't feel like Star Wars. We're seeing a side to the Star Wars galaxy that's never really been explored on screen. Plenty of books have tried to do something similar, not to this level of intricacy, but for a Star Wars TV show, if you compare it to some of the others, this is truly unlike anything we've ever seen. So, as I've been doing for the last few videos, I want to finish with a frequently asked question. As we go into the Andor finale, there is something which kind of irks fans who are seeing the bigger picture of the Star Wars timeline, and it's this. This viral tweet says, I think it's quite funny that we're now getting this deeply emotional, ominous, and terrifying build-up to the Death Star in A New Hope, and then in Return of the Jedi, there's just another one 4 years later. They're talking about the Death Star too. And so, I guess the question fans have is, Andor and Rogue One make a big deal about Project Stardust, how long it took the Empire to get the specifications spot on to build this massive superweapon, but then after the Battle of Yavin, they built another one in a fraction of the time. Well, we have to remember a couple of things. The second Death Star was built with a focus on maximum surface area. They built the superweapon part, but not much else. The idea was to lure the rebels to fight a standard military operation around Endor. But one of the main reasons, like I said, is the Empire had already built one before. The final piece of the original Death Star that signified its completion was the planet-destroying laser, which was the logical order to build it in because of security reasons. Had they started with the laser, then every planet in the galaxy would have revolted before it was finished. On the other hand, Sidious's main goal with the second Death Star was to get the laser constructed first, and it was rather rushed. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I can't wait to break down the final 3 episodes. May the Force be with you, always.